Blessed to have him on again in a different capacity, talking to the CEO of the Dreamfield Academy in Philadelphia, Mr. Anthony Johnson. Brother Johnson, it's good to talk to you again. Michael Ingram, Gary Gray, and Diane Grassi here, Sultry Radio on the Raw.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
All good,
thanks.
Good, sir.
Happy birthday, happy belated, Diane.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So what's been going on? How y'all doing?
Well, we've been doing all right. We heard, unfortunately, things didn't turn out as we would have hoped. But as we always say, we know that the strong keep going, and we would like to talk about your immediate situation here with the Dreamfield Academy and what the school is trying to do.
That's my baby, and as you said, we made a good run. We came up on the short end of the stick, but I enjoyed every minute of it. So, and I appreciate those who went out and supported me, and even now, have given me nothing but words of encouragement and support. So I appreciate that. But Dreamfield Academy, I started in 1995. Right after I graduated from Cheney State University. I started it up because, growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, we had individuals that looked out for me and my friends when we were kids growing up, and their only concern was to ensure that we had opportunities to be successful in the world, and the only thing that they wanted us to do, those of us who went off to school, things of that magnitude, was to, at some point in time, to come back and give to the community, come back and uplift the next generation. So that was basically the number one purpose of starting Dreamfield Academy. It's a program where I provide mentoring, tutorial services, and I teach non-traditional sports, rugby, soccer, fencing as a kid, growing up in North Philadelphia. I was taught how to fence. I always like to tell the kids, I was just telling some recently, when I say fence, they kind of look at each other like, wait a minute, what kind of program is this? And I tell them, not that kind of fence. So, so I was taught how to fence, and these are some of the programs that I teach. And I think more important, it's more mentors, particularly in the city of Philadelphia, is needed. What we're dealing with right now with the high number of our youth dropping out of school, the horrific budget cuts. So we have to address these issues. So more mentors are needed.
Anthony, that's the thing that bothers me. I mean, we've heard so much about Pennsylvania's schools in mainstream news, which, for the most part, they really are not giving a feather nor fig about the big picture here. But it seems like it really has gotten worse since we last talked. I mean, the schools have been under siege, and teachers, you got to figure they've got to be quite demoralized by the conditions and everything that's going on with the politics.
And I think what we're doing is what we're going back to what we did in the 70s. We're so concerned about us as adults. The kids are standing there and they're looking at all of this and they're saying, "Wow! I mean, if you're cutting, you're talking about possibly closing 40 schools in 3 weeks.
Wow!
What are you going to do with all those kids? You're going to pile them on top of each other. You're not going to increase the pay for the children. I mean, for the teachers. You're not going to increase. You're not going to increase more support services for those teachers. So we know what's going to happen. Mitt Romney was just in the city a couple of days ago, and he went on record saying that, in essence, he didn't see anything wrong with the classroom sizes being increased.
Oh, my God.
So he said, something to the tune that, 43, 45, 50 kids in one class, I don't see anything wrong with that.
45.
Right.
Clueless?
Isn't that a fire hazard?
No kidding.
There's an educational hazard. There are so many hazards to this, and to hear someone who was running for president to say that just tells me once again of how out of touch he is. Because the last thing you want to come and say in a city, as you just said, that's been all over the national news with their school situation and say, oh, no, 43, 50 kids in one class, I don't see anything wrong with that. Really? Really? You know, I always like to equate it that you have 50 kids, but 150 different mindsets and attitudes. And they're saying, you, one teacher, get in there and make all these guys Rhodes Scholars. It's impossible, and we have a governor, again, Mr. Governor Corbett, who basically he just doesn't care. He simply doesn't care.
Anthony, before I kick it over to Diane and Gary, again, because everything has been highlighted here, you would think somebody would be lighting a fire underneath someone's butt in Harrisburg to say, you know, you're really making the rest of us look bad here in Pennsylvania. But yeah, based on what you said, I don't get the impression that that's going on at all. This are the results of this going to make it even more political, because charter schools are going to try to push for more control over being able to carry a curriculum that's going to bring kids out of the public schools into their schools.
Absolutely, and we, you know, over a 10-year span, we've had independent and, you know, federal agencies, educational agencies that then concluded that the majority of the charter schools curriculum, the kids either done equally as bad or worse in some instances as the public schools. Right. But as you said, in the sense that they're closing public schools at such an alarming rate here in Philadelphia, that's exactly what's going to happen. These kids are going to go to these charter schools, and in the end, they're going to drop out at alarming rates as well in those things. Instead of building, like we talked before, you're building all these prisons, you're putting all this money in prisons, but you fail to build new schools, or they say to the public, well, we're closing that school because enrollment is low. So, okay, and then you close the school building, and then it sits there, and it becomes dilapidated. The commissioner's office in the city of Philadelphia just talked about all these buildings, public school buildings that are just sitting there decaying. And Dreamfield Academy, what I've been trying to do for the last several years is to get a school, in particular R.S. Walton Elementary School, where I attended from K to 6. That school's been closed for a number of years. At one time, it was used for a dumping ground where they were people were coming in dumping their dead dogs.
Jeez. And
I've been trying to get it for several years, and you know they're just consistently giving me the runaround. Now, Dreamfield Academy is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's very, very small, so of course I can't afford to purchase the building, but the school could easily donate it to me, and I would have other services besides Dreamfield Academy providing these services in a neighborhood that has been decimated by poverty, illiteracy, and a whole gamut of social ills. But just hoop after hoop after hoop after hoop they're making me jump through.
This is crazy. Listen, we're talking with Anthony Johnson, CEO of Dreamfield Academy in Philadelphia, looking to convert an old public school into a base of operations where he can continue the work he started since the mid-'90s. I shift the questioning over to my colleague, Diane Grassi.
Yeah, Anthony, I think the main problem here is, and I research and report on public policy. I've been doing it for a good 10 years now, that the federal government, in many capacities, has basically taken over our local school districts. And what's happened is that the state and the local school districts are carrying their boots because they're afraid that at every turn they're going to lose funding. And we're all, you know, an awful lot of this started with the No Child Left Behind nonsense, which was never, which the government, the federal government passed, and then they said, hey, states, now you fund it, and if you don't fund it, you're in trouble. So a lot of the resources came out of that, and the charter school, I have to say, it's turned into a business sham. It's largely private ventures and venture capitalists who put up all this money. And they just try to form their own curriculum outside of the scope of any centered curriculum, and then they fail. And what my question to you is that And by the way, there's a fencer who was in the last Olympics from Harlem, a young African American guy who I think he's in his late 20s now, who's going to be hopefully going back to London again. I forgot his name, pardon me, but anyway, how do you coalesce and get African American mentors to keep your program going with all these wonderful niche sports that you want to expose to youngsters?
You know, that's the question. You know, what we need more is more mentors to get involved. I think we have to. We're not. I think what we have is we have a great number of mentors out there, and they're not finding the opportunities to donate enough of their time and effort. We know that, you know, in order for a child or children to be mentored effectively, you have to be committed to a year. So we have to get more mentors to make that a commitment that for 1 year I'm going to work with these children. Now, you know, you got organizations like the United Way. They do a great job with their mentors. But I think because of the climate with the schools are closing, more are needed to come on deck. More are needed to come to the forefront and be a part of helping the teachers, because the teachers can't do it alone. So, you know, what I want to do, you know, the next time, in the next month or so, is I want to formulate a coalition of mentors in the city of Philadelphia and to come together and to try to figure out, you know, strategize of what we need to do, what places, what areas we need to target in the city, what schools that need to be targeted, and that we need to go in and do our part in effectively helping the schools that are failing miserably. The federal situation that you touched on, I think that was good, Diane. But at the same time, what I've also seen with the federal government as of late is basically saying, the states, you do whatever you want to do, because we're not going to fund your schools because you're not doing what you need to do. And then what the states are doing, when they're sitting down at the state officials, when they sit at the table, they're saying, you know what, we can cut education. I have always believed that under no circumstances, and this is just me, and I just grew up in a household that felt this way. No, under no circumstances education should be negotiated. It's as simple as that. It must be done. Children must have the opportunity to be educated. Arne Duncan, who's the Secretary of Education, talks about all this money that he has, something to the tune of $5 billion.
Right.
And where's the money going? See, these are the type of investigations need to start going on. Where's the money going?
That's the question. Each kid that shows up for school every day, whether he only goes to homeroom or not, gets a certain amount of money from the federal government. And that goes to lunch programs and everything else. The question is then, are these states then investing that money back into education, or are they doing what Major League Baseball does and pocketing it?
They're pocketing it. Because in public school, if I'm not mistaken, in public schools it's $8,800 per child. And yet you're cutting many of basic breakfast programs. So if you're cutting those programs, but you're still getting $8,800 per child, which I think is absolutely, you know, is ridiculous. Where's the $8,800 going? It's going into their pockets. It's going in every direction except in the investment in the child. That's where it's going.
In New York City, it's $15,000 a head.
In New York, $15,000 a head. But again, they cut breakfast programs, they cut lunch programs. You know, after school programs, after school programs across the board. So that's what I like to see. But you know, once again, the city always cries broke. You know, more after school programs. More. That was one of the platforms that I ran on. I said, you know, more after school programs in my community where the dropout rate, only 24.8% of the youth that live in this area graduates from school.
Jeez. And
when you talk to them and you talk to the parents, there's no after-school activities. There's nothing for them to do. So they get into trouble. There is no one out there. We're going back to the 70s where the adults were out there having their fun, partying, and all the while the children are standing there. And then they just realized that no one is going to come and help them, so they went out and helped themselves. Unfortunately, always for the darker side of the soul. And we are doing it again instead of addressing this. When our children see that we don't care, they think, why should they care?
Right.
Should I get up and go to school every day when you're not going to even feed me because this may be the only breakfast, lunch, and dinner that I'll get? You're telling me that I'm nothing. I'm worth nothing. So I will follow your rule. I'm going to act like nothing. Why go to school and get this so-called education?
Well, it's not rocket science, but you'd think that with these politicians that it is.
I think what it is, the bottom line is we have too many politicians running our office. I don't want to get into do history and stuff, but Thomas Jefferson said, again, I think I said this before, he said that no matter how effective an elected official is, they should never stay in, those positions are not career. They should not be careers. Because no matter how effective a government official you are prone to getting corrupt. And that's what we're seeing. They don't care. They'll sit there and give us the story. I love the children. But then we pull their coat and say, well, you cut education funding. Well, see, what happened was we had to do ABC. No, that's not what you said. You cut education funding. It should never be negotiated. I'm sorry, because I still believe in the philosophy that, with education, you may not become a millionaire, but with good education, you won't starve.
Well, and what you alluded to before, if you have kids that get an education and then have relative programs in the afternoon, they're not going to wind up in prison.
They're not going to wind up in prison. Exactly. So, again, this is no conspiracy theory either. 30, 40 years ago, they were hiding this. Now it's wide open. We're talking about closing 40 schools, but talking about opening up 14 prisons.
Jesus.
Yeah. They're not even. It's not even hiding it anymore because in essence they're saying, look, we're ranked we're ranked bottom, 25th in math and science, even further behind in political science and history and stuff like that. Why bother? We'll educate some who can afford it, and for the other ones, we're doing stuff. This stuff is so bad what we're doing with our children. Darwin would be astonished.
Yep.
He would say, okay, I know I talked about the haves and the have-nots, survival of the fittest, but what you guys are on, this is an abomination.
My goodness. Woof. Gary, any questions for Mr. Johnston?
No, with no child left behind. All right, now, President Obama is trying to repeal this act. What will it take to get a total repeal of No Child Left Behind? Because what it's done is destroyed disabled students. Because disabled students cannot compete with able-bodied students at the same time. And with No Child Left Behind, they have to. It's not fair, it's not right.
No Child Left Behind, what was as Diane said earlier, and I'm saying it in my own words, it was a horrible piece of legislation. It never should have been signed, and, if anything, he's going to be remembered by, if anybody who has exacerbated the demise of our education system with the No Child Left Behind, okay, because it was holding no one accountable. You just took a boatload of money, put it in, said you follow these guidelines,
right,
and whatever happens, we don't care. It's our way of addressing the education system.
One size fits all.
One size fits all. And we saw how horrible, even the people that sat at the table and drew up the blueprint are now saying, we should have thought about this before. Some more thought should have been put into this.
Okay,
but it's
so
always after that.
How do we get this thing repealed or dismissed?
Well, what President Obama has done, he has gotten rid of many parts of it. He hasn't come flat out and completely got rid of it. But I would say, I think last I checked, something to the tune of maybe 73% of it was X'd out. He said there were some good parts in it. I went back and looked at it, and, I said I don't see it. But the hope will be that he will completely get rid of it and get some people at the table, and again, not elected officials, okay? We're talking about people who understand education, people who understand what the children need and sit at that table and figure it out. You bring all these guys from the halls of academia, and that's no disrespect. I'm from the halls of academia. You guys are from the halls of academia. But we don't know everything. But there are some things that we know definitely about what our children need and don't need. And, you know, there's No Child Left Behind was a piece of legislation that our children did not need. And it's going to take, I would say it's going to take about, you know, I would go on record and say 5 to 10 years to finally gut this thing completely. And get it and get back to basics. One thing we definitely have to do, we have to address the teachers. The pay is horrible.
Right.
The pay is absolutely horrible. You're asking teachers to do a great deal, and you're not willing to pay them. But
Anthony, Anthony, if I can interrupt you just for a hot second, what is the median salary for a teacher in the city of Philadelphia or in the state of Pennsylvania, if you know it?
And I would say for a Philadelphia school teacher, I think the median salary is about between 30 and
35.
37.
Yeah,
35.
You're right. No, you're right.
My goodness.
Yeah. That's for public school.
Mm-hmm. Now you compare California, it's only 50,000. You know, California is out here. It's crazy out here.
It's 50,000 in California, if I heard Gary right.
Yeah, Nevada, it's 25.
In Nevada, 25,000. Are you? Wow.
Well,
go ahead.
That brings up another point, though, Anthony, because you know you just mentioned it. You've got schools there. I mean, some of the best schools in the world: University of Pennsylvania, LaSalle, Drexel, St. Joseph's, Villanova. You know, the people at these colleges, they see what's going on in the city. You're telling me that none of these people are stepping to the governor and saying, what the hell are you pulling here?
There are some. There are some individuals. There are social groups here. There are individuals here in the city of Philadelphia like Darren Tolliver, Craig Stroman. You know, there are people here that are standing up to the governor and saying this is wrong. You even have some elected officials that I've talked to, because I do some freelance writing for the Philadelphia Public Record, and they're saying the same thing. But what I want to see them to do is to make it known. It's always this, well, we support what the community is saying, but you know we got to do this very, very carefully. Huh? Right.
Unbelievable.
And so we have people here that are stepping up, but we need more groups, more individuals, more mentors to step up and say, you know, this has got to stop. You know, somebody asked him, Corbett when he was during the time he's slashing all his education for our children. You know, don't you have a heart? He said, yeah, my heart is right here. There's nothing wrong with my heart. He doesn't see anything wrong with cutting education, and I say it's an abomination. You don't do it.
That's disgusting.
Horace Mann, who was considered the father of education in the United States, believes in that. I mean, you go all the way back, you know, to the Dark Ages, and you see his name slips me, but I'll remember at 3:00 in the morning. But even he said that it was very important that, you know, if we educate, you know, the population, then we will get more goods and services from it. And we're not, and now we're just going back to a time where, you know, I've wrote several articles about where it seems to be returning to the Dark Ages, where education is just not a thing that is pursued anymore. And what are the kids going to do? You can't go into the military. The military is asking you now to have certain qualifications.
Well, they're also cutting the military.
Exactly. So what happens to the children? A child who's 17 years old, a teenager, who has a 8th grade education, has no social skills, who has no background in anything credible to get him or her a stable job, what happens? It's a combination. It's a combination for chaos.
Anthony, as you mentioned the first time we had you on the show, the state was coming off a scandal where 2 judges admitted that they were arresting young people for crimes inordinately longer sentence-wise than what it should have been, if at all. And they confessed because they were working with private prisons in order to fill them up by putting kids in there.
Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
you're talking about this on the heels of what's going on here, and you get the impression that when you say the Untouchables, you're not talking about an old TV show from the 50s starring Robert Stack. You're talking about really permanent underclass situations here that are being endorsed basically by the governor.
You know, the sad thing is that some people would say, and if I was to write another article about them, I would say to them how stupid you were. You didn't have to do it, meaning that you could have gotten your kickback and not had to do it, because if you'd have waited, you inherited a governor who is part of a league of politicians in the republic, who basically does not view education as important to our youth, and more investment is going into prisons. So you didn't actually have to sneak and do it. You could have just waited, and then when they came before you, because that's what's going to happen anyway. A 17-year-old child, a kid who doesn't have any skills, it's a mixture for getting in trouble with the law, and when they want to change the laws from some of the most common basic crimes that would require you to have community service, they're saying, now give them 5 years. Now, I can say somebody like Councilman David O. here in Philadelphia, that's something that he's fighting against. He's saying, listen, we can clean out our prisons because we have a lot of individuals in our prisons in Philadelphia that are the crimes that they should not be in prison. They should be doing community service. They should be doing job training. They should be getting back into society and being viable. But he's gonna come on. He's gonna have a uphill fight. I applaud him for doing it, but he's gonna have an uphill fight, because the thing is they want this. The attitude is, hey, slow down. We're building more prisons. We'll just transfer them.
What has Mayor Nutter's position been on this since this has come out in Front Street?
You know, anytime you want to get your name in the paper, he's been absolutely silent on it until a couple of days ago when Mitt Romney came and spoke.
Oh God!
And then he and DA Seth Williams, they were at a school. This is where Mitt Romney met with Kenny Gamble. Music, one of the greatest producers of all time. So he's an entrepreneur. They met with him. Romney met with him and some of his folk to talk about this situation with the schools. So what Nutter did was he did a press conference. He had everybody come out, and he was criticizing Mitt Romney about the schools and saying, oh, what is he doing here? Oh, now he cares about the impoverished area of West Philadelphia. Well, my mom used to say that's the kettle calling the teapot black. Because my thing has been, where has Mayor Nutter been at? I mean, he doesn't even want you to feed homeless people in public. You know, that's his fight right now. He's fighting against a lot of the groups out here who've been feeding the homeless. He's fighting them that, okay, we don't really want people to be feeding them in public. You know, take them behind doors and do that. You know, so he's been very quiet on it up until the last couple of days when former Governor Mitt Romney came here to talk about what about schools, and made such a foolish comment regarding the number of students in school.
Well, whatever they talked about couldn't have went in one ear and managed to stay there any longer than the thought process would allow, because Romney says 50 kids in the classroom. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You know,
he didn't see anything wrong with it. Now, one of the individuals that was there asked him, to please explain that, because he didn't understand how basically he could make a statement like that. But leave it to Mitt Romney to finagle his way out of it. But he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it.
Well, another politician who doesn't get it. Can I ask you, are you going to run for the school board at all? I know you lost this last election, but what is your interest in getting on the board?
I tell you, Dan, I haven't given any thought to that. I've been really trying to get, Dreamfield moving in a direction where I can help as many of our children as I possibly can, and try to get other individuals to get involved. But I haven't given that much thought. But I think that would be an uphill battle because I think I'm saying things that they would not want to hear. You know, I want accountability, and I want people who participated in these shenanigans over the last several years. I want them, if they need to tell us what was going on.
Ooh, Anthony, you better than I am because I wouldn't have said shenanigans, but I digress. I want to get to the issue of the buildings though, because I remember a while back there was a homesteading program where buildings could have been bought, and you do the fixing up, and it's no big deal. Did that stop, and why wouldn't they be able to just pass that on, especially if they would one day be able to collect taxes off of a building like that?
Yeah, I've tried everything with the school board, and the only time Bill Fox, who's in charge of the buildings of the school district, the only thing his responses to me in his letters and phone calls was, well, the building is not for sale. The building's been sitting there for 6 years, sir. The building is used as a dumping ground, sir. Jeez. I'm not asking to buy it, sir. I'm asking you, did you read the letter? It's asking you to donate it. And this is what I can do by you donating this building that can hold 600 people. These are the things and these are the services that I could bring to a community. I'm from that neighborhood, so I know the climate. So this is what we could do. If you can simply donate it to me. And it's just never got done. So I have a petition around asking everybody to sign it and things like that, and hopefully that, but it's been an uphill battle. It's been the last several years that I've been trying to get this building, and to no avail. And like I said, the city controller has said that these empty school buildings that's not being used are a blight on communities.
Yeah, but what's going on here as well and all over the country is that these developers sometimes swoop in and they offer all kinds of cash to these guys that own these buildings, and they hold out and they hold out, even sometimes for 20 years. Exactly.
You're absolutely right. And we have to, again, this is I think what the citizens in the Republic, in Philadelphia in particular, is we need to be awakened. I think we're still in a slumber. I don't know where it came from. If I just may quickly hearken to the primary, I wrote an op-ed talking about how disappointed I was to lose to Andrew Cruz and Jonathan Ramos, but I said the thing that bothered me even right now as I'm sitting here talking to you was that out of 66,000 people that's in the 180 district, 10% went out and voted.
Wow.
Less than 6,000 people voted on April 24th.
Oh my God!
And that just galvanized me. So it's people want change. People want A, B, C, D, but if you can't get up and go push a button, how can you expect change? How can you expect things? People will tell you, I'm sure you guys heard it 1,000 times, well, my vote doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
They have bought into that system. They have bought into that ideology. And I can say right now in Philadelphia, I think, and overall, Philadelphia on April 24th, it was 15 to 18%. That was it.
Goodness.
When Mayor Nutter won his second term, only 21% went out and voted.
We're the only Israeli country in the world. 150% of people vote.
It's disgraceful. You know how many people voted on American Idol the other night? 126 million.
Yeah. Thank you.
126 million people
Priorities.
went out and voted.
Priorities.
It's priorities. They thought that somebody went in a reality series recording contract was more important than addressing the people who are holding elected offices to do the things that must be done for the Republic. And, they're in a stupor. And I don't know, I don't have the answer. All I can do is do my part and to go out every day and to try to be an effective, a social and conscious agent of helping our children, reach beyond the walls of the barricade. I love Les Mis, and there's a song that that said there's a world beyond the barricade, and when I'm mentoring the youth, I always tell them that there's a world beyond the barricade. And sometimes, one or two will say, well, what does that mean, Anthony? I said, Mr. Johnson or Anthony, I said that I tell them that your neighborhood, there's a whole world beyond your neighborhood. It's a beautiful world out there, and you have to prepare yourself to go out and see it, because if you're not prepared, then, you can run into all types of problems. And I think we're living in a society where, there are powerful forces that are saying we don't want everyone to share this American dream. We need to have some people on the bottom, and they need to be permanently kept there. Serve them.
That's right. That's exactly where this is going. We've talked about this on other shows and this show for over a couple of years. I find the most fearful thing of all of this is that when this does happen, and if somehow, in spite of everything, our government changes hands in a further negative direction, it's going to get, to quote the brother from the movie, downright medieval out here, if it's not already in some parts of this country. And there's going to be a chaos and an anarchy that I think a lot of folks weren't expecting when they saw that little boat cross the Delaware.
Yes. And, it's funny you touch on that, because I feel that if we as a nation, if we don't grow up and wake up, the current way that we are treating the youth today, they're the ones that's going to bring that chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
Real quick, 140 thus far as of Thursday of this week. 140 homicides in Philadelphia, 17 years old to 35 years old is where most of the homicides have occurred, the population.
Damn. I know from working.
Same in New York, roughly 16 to 37, right.
Yep. I know from working there in Philly that those numbers are consistent, if nothing else, and that's the scary part about it. Anthony, we would like very much, if you can, through your coordinate, Terry, to please send us the link to the Dreamfield Academy. We would be very proud to put it on our site, and anything we can do to promote the site and
Thank
your
you so much.
effort, we would be more than willing to jump in and help if we can. So
I appreciate it greatly. Thank you so much.
We thank you so much for coming on. You're welcome anytime to bring up any subject that needs be. So you don't have to be a stranger. Please come and holler up. Give us another shameless plug for your organization, if you will, please, before exiting.
Well, it's Dreamfield Academy, 501c3 nonprofit organization. We provide mentoring. We provide teach non-traditional sports such as soccer, rugby, and one of my favorite sports is fencing. And not the fencing that gets you in trouble with the law. And, if you have any questions or concerns, you please, call me, 215-715-0355.
I just realized, Anthony, do you know Dr. Nikki Frank? Because I remember interviewing her. She was on the Olympic team as a fencer. I think she was in saber and épée. And she was among the Olympic team that didn't go because of the politics of the Carter thing. Do you know her?
Familiar with that. I know of the story, yes.
I was just curious about that. Again, brother, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. You have a wonderful weekend, sir. And
thank you.
To you and everybody else there at the Academy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.